This conference will now be recorded.
Right, let's start today's session. So in the last session, we were discuss about delegates and pointers. And in this session, I'm going to discuss about error handling mechanism. So what is error handling? That means exception handling. How to handle with this, we'll discuss. Generally, when we write .NET code and execute, there are three types of error occurrences. One is syntactical errors. Syntactical errors. Next one is compilation errors. Compilation errors. And next one is runtime errors. So when we write .NET code and execute, there may be chance of three types of error occurrence. One is syntactical errors, compilation errors, runtime errors. Syntactical errors, compilation errors, runtime errors. So syntactical errors means these errors do not cause any harmful to the program execution, and these errors occurs when we miss double quotes, or when we miss semicolon, or when we miss brackets, or when we write wrong spelling to the syntax. Then we will get syntactical errors. So these are very simple mistakes and common mistakes from the programmer side. And when we get syntactical errors, these errors do not cause any harmful to the program execution. The reason is these syntactical errors can be easily identified and rectified by the programmer at the time of writing the code. In case if you are not identifying these syntactical errors while writing the code, these errors, same syntactical errors, will be raised at the time of compilation. So those errors are called compilation errors. So the errors which will be occur at the time of compilation is called compilation errors. Okay. So compilation errors and syntactical errors do not cause any harmful to the program execution. And so that you need not to worry about syntactical errors and compilation errors. So as a program, easily we can rectify these syntactical as well as compilation errors. But when it comes to runtime errors, there is a big problem for runtime errors. The reason is runtime error is nothing but exception, or else you can say exception is nothing but runtime errors. The errors which will occur at the time of program execution is called runtime errors. So runtime errors will cause abnormal termination of program execution. Abnormal termination of program execution. Abnormal termination of program execution. So termination means exit. So there are two types of terminations. One is successful termination, and next one is unsuccessful termination or abnormal termination. For example, when we start executing the program, if that program is expecting some input values from the user, and whenever we give some correct values to that program will take the values as input from the user, and it will execute the program properly, and it will display output to you after exit. Then it will be successfully terminate. But due to some invalid inputs, sometimes by mistake, whenever you try to give some invalid inputs, due to that invalid inputs, your program all of a sudden will show exception. That is called abnormal termination. Means without showing any output, that program will give you abnormal termination message, exception message. So that is called exception, and we have to handle these exceptions or runtime errors. For handling these exceptions or runtime errors, then we use exception handling mechanisms. So what are the exception handling mechanisms are there here? Exception handling mechanisms. Exception handling mechanisms. So actually there are two types of exception handling mechanisms are there. One is logical implementation. One is logical implementation, and next one is try-catch implementation. Try-catch implementation. One is logical implementation, and next one is try-catch implementation. So actually, first and foremost important we should give to logical implementation whenever you are trying to handle exception. But I'm saying that all the exceptions may not possible to handle using logical implementation. In that case, we can go for try-catch implementation. But first of all, you should try to handle exceptions using logical statements. If that's not possible to handle exceptions using logical statement, then you can go for try-catch implementation. Okay, so this is so exception handling mechanism is only for runtime errors or exceptions only. Exception handling mechanism is not for syntactical errors as well as compilation errors. As I said that syntactical errors, compilation errors can be easily identified and rectified by the programmer at the time of writing the code or at the time of compilation. But these runtime errors we cannot identify and rectify at the time of program execution. So that's what we have to handle these errors. So by using exception handling mechanism only. But most importantly, exception handling mechanism is not the process of repairing the error. We are not going to repair the error using exception handling mechanism. It is just the process to show alternative way of program execution successfully. So that means if there is a problem and we need to divert that problem and we need to show a right path to execute the program, that is nothing but exception handling mechanism. So what is exactly the technical definition of exception means? An unexpected or unwanted event will disturb the normal flow of program execution. An unexpected or unwanted event will disturb the normal flow of program execution. Flow of program execution is called exception, we can say that. An unexpected or unwanted event will disturb the normal flow of program execution is called what exactly? Exception. Is called exception, sir. Okay? Yes. So you have to handle this exception clearly. You have to handle this exception clearly by using what? Logical implementation. In case if your exception is not possible to using logical statement, then you can go for try-catch implementation. Okay? And in C#.NET, every exception is a class. Yes, every exception is a class. But here, so many exception classes are there, like zero division exception class, okay, arithmetic exception class, and member access exception class, method access exception class, format exception class. So that there are different exceptions are there. But all the exceptions are present or processed under the superclass only. So what is the superclass of exception means here? So this is the superclass actually. Exception is a superclass of all subclass exceptions. Exception is a superclass of all subclass exceptions. So instead of using a particular exception class in your program, you can also use superclass. But superclass can handle internally all the exceptions. But I am not recommending to use superclass. The reason is when we know as a programmer what type of exception occurred, that exception class better to use it. But if you use superclass, the problem is what you know. Superclass will take internally all the exception classes as a reference, but all the exception classes process is typical. That means it will take a lot of time. So your program output will become delay. So that's what whenever you know that exactly while writing the program, so and so exceptions occurred means that type of exceptions we can use in your program instead of superclass. In case as a programmer, if you don't have any idea or you have no idea about exceptions which is going to be raised for your program, then obviously we can use superclass. But here superclass and but here one more thing, exceptions can be of two types. One is predefined exceptions, predefined or built-in exceptions. predefined or built-in exceptions. Next one is user-defined, 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 or customized exceptions, customized exceptions, user-defined or customized exceptions, and predefined or built-in exceptions, and user-defined or customized exceptions. Predefined exception means these exception classes by default available and along with the .NET, and user-defined exceptions means in case if your requirement do not satisfy with the help of predefined exception classes, then we can prepare our own exception class and we can raise that exceptions in our program according to requirement. That is called customized exceptions or user-defined exceptions. But notice that predefined exceptions by default will be raised by the system. So you need not to raise those exceptions in our program. According to situation, predefined exceptions or built-in exceptions will raise. But when it comes to user-defined or customized exceptions, these exception classes prepared by the programmer. So these exception classes need to raise by the programmer itself. So for raising user-defined or customized exceptions, we use a keyword called throw keyword. THROW, throw keyword we use. So throw means we can throw the exception classes according to your requirement. So we will all see the practical implementation from now onwards. Okay. So this is completely discussion on exception handling or error handling clearly. So why we should avoid that exception handling or error handling? So to avoid abnormal termination of program execution. Okay. Let's look into quick examples of exception. And first time I'm taking this program simply, very simple program I'm taking. Just give me 1 second. I'm adding a class. My class name is just meaningful name I'm taking, CLS exception I'm taking here. So this is meaningful name which I'm taking here. Okay. Yes. Let's include the main method. Yes. Now this I'm taking three variables A and B and C. In these three variables, just I'm asking enter two numbers. This is very simple, straightforward program. And A value I'm accepting at runtime. So that's what int.parse of console.read lines are. And next B value I'm accepting at runtime again. So int.parse of, then now you can see console.what actually read line, you can say that. And C equals to A by B I'm taking. Then after that console.writeLine. Now you can see console.writeLine. So that result is result is result is plus what I'm taking C only. And to stay back to our screen, console.what read. This is very simple and straightforward program. I took three variables here, and in the two I'm accepting at runtime, and the value 1 division by value 2, and result will be stored into C. C value I'm displaying into output window. But in this case, especially in this program, there is a chance to raise an exception here. Okay. Yes. Now you can see CLS exception I'm taking. Click on save and then run. So if your input values are perfect, means there is no wrong values, and your program executes successfully and you will get proper outputs out. Now you can see enter two numbers. Okay, enter two numbers. I'm taking first number 20 and second number 5. Then 20 by 4 result is 20 by 5 result is 4. Perfect. But if I'm including my first number is 0, so if I include 0 is the first number and second number is 10, 0 by something, obviously 0 only. Here there is no problem. The problem is when user entered their second number as 0, then there is a problem, sir. So what is the problem? You can see I'm including 20 first number and second number is 0. Then obviously, according to mathematical equation, a number cannot divide with 0. Something is divided by 0 is called infinity, but there is no infinity term in computer terminology. So obviously we got this exception, system dot divide by 0 exception. That means attempted to divide by 0. This is called abnormal termination. So this is abnormal termination. Subnormal termination means all of a sudden, due to some invalid inputs, program has been stopped. But you want to come out from this execution. Yes, if you want to come out from this execution, don't close this window. This is just closing the window of message, but you want to exit from the output. So you can see stop debugging option is there here. The red color square box is there. Or else you can hit from your keyboard shift plus F5, you will exit from the output window, so you can stop debugging your program. So there is a problem, sir, in this code. So that's what I'm trying to do. I am going to handle this exception. First priority I should give to logical statements. Logical statement means what? In the second number case, there is a problem. So if user is entered some second number is 0, suppose here, if b equal to 0, I can say open bracket and close bracket. And if they give some message to them, console.writeLine, I can say second number cannot be 0 here. Second number cannot be 0, sir. Cannot be 0, I can say that. So that end user will understand that by seeing this message, second number cannot be 0. If second number is 0, I can say else bot. If second number is not 0, I can say else bot. Else bot, I'm taking this condition, sir. So if second number is 0, then I should say message to the end user, second number cannot be 0. In case if user is not entered second number as 0, then we have to go to what? Else block only. So else block, it will execute like A by B only. Let's see this. I'm handling this runtime error using logical statements clearly. So I'm giving my input is 20, first number and second number is 0. And immediately if condition will check that a B value equal to 0, that is match. Then if condition is true, if block will execute, second number cannot be 0 like this. Okay. In case if second number is not 0, sir. Okay, then which block will consider? Else block will consider. For example, I'm taking 15 and 3. So now result is 15 by 3, 5 only. Got my point? But look at this program. There is a problem again in this program. Though you have handled this exception using logical statements, okay, there is a problem again. In case if as a user, if I'm giving my input is in the form of characters, but actually I'm just asking two numbers, but I'm just giving my input is character. This is wrong again. Due to end user invalid inputs only, all of a sudden the exceptions will be raised. Okay, that's what here you can see. I'm giving my input is wrong, ABC. As soon as when we enter, when we hit the enter button, immediately it is saying me another type of exception, system dot format exception. That means input string was not in correct format. Input string was not correct format in the sense whatever you are giving input, that's not correct format. It says. Okay, you're asking two numbers, but I'm just giving a character. That's not correct. So it is the problem. So to avoid this problem again, so we have to use try catch implementation, because as I said that all the exceptions may not possible to handle using logical statements. In those case, we can go for try catch implementation. But look at this program try catch implementation. Try means this is the block of try, and some valid statements we can include in this try block statement, and catch, and whenever we get the exception, catch block will execute. And now you can see finally including optional, and if it is now you can see statements like this one, finally statement. See, the control flow of try catch implementation is first program execution or control will jump into inside the try block. Inside the try block, whatever the statements included, that statements will execute first. Inside the try block, what statements we included, that statements will execute first. In case in this try block statements, if there is no errors, that means what? There is no errors and there is no exceptions. Everything is fine in try block statements. Try block only will execute. Catch block will ignore. finally will execute. In case something went wrong, there is an exception in try block, sir. There is an exception in try block means some exceptions or runtime error is there in this try block statement. In that case, try block simply will ignore, control will jump into catch block, and then after control will jump into finally block. So notice that whether exception raised or not raised, whether exception handled or not handled, no matter in both cases, which block is commonly executed? Finally block. The reason why? Because finally block, including finally block, is optional in the try catch implementation, but if you include, it must be executed. Okay, but generally, what type of statements we can include inside the try blocks are? What type of statements we can include in try block? Risky statements, risky code. Risky code means what? There is a chance to get an exception that is called risky code. Risky code we should keep inside the try block. So what type of statements we can include under the catch blocks are? Handling code. Handling code in the sense what type of alternate statements you are using, that handling code we can keep inside the catch block. If anything exception occurred in try block, what you want to show, that statements we can include inside the catch block simply. Okay, so that's what handling code we are including catch block. Risky code we are including try block. But what type of statements we include always in finally block? Mandatory statements. Mandatory statements. Mandatory statements means, okay, irrespective of exception, whether it is occurred or not occurred, irrespective of exceptions, whether it is handled or not handled, but all the time, finally, I want to display some message to the end user, and those statements we can include in finally block. But the matter is, why don't we keep these mandatory statements inside a try block or inside a catch block? What happens are when we keep these mandatory statements inside the try block or inside the catch block? The problem is when we keep mandatory statements inside the try block, there is a possibility to skip the execution of try block. The reason is when we get exception in try block, then try block simply ignore. When we ignore the try block, then mandatory statements, there may be chance to missed out. Okay, and again same, when we keep these mandatory statements inside the catch block, and there is no guarantee to execute always catch block statements, because catch block will execute only when the exception is occurred inside the try block. But in case when the exception is not occurred inside the try block, then what will happen? Catch block only will ignore. Whenever catch block ignore, then this mandatory statements what we included in the catch block that may be missed out. So the better place is mandatory statements point of view, finally block, that is always will execute irrespective of catch block and irrespective of try block. But generally, where we use this finally block in the sense, for example, you are going to write database connectivity program. Yes, we are going to see in coming session database connectivity program also. In those cases, whether you are connecting to the database, whether you are reading the data from database or not, or anything wrong, but ultimately after end of the execution, you must and should close the connection from the database, mandatory that is. So that closing connection part we will include inside the finally block. Got my point? So that is the case. Let's see the try catch finally block implementation. Same code how we can convert into try catch implementation here. Okay, let's remove this script, and now you can see I'm going to remove this, and let's control A KD, and it is arranging completely structured wise. Control KD, select all the code, and you can press control plus KD, then it will arrange you normal structure. For example, your program is not in well structured. Some lines are like this only. Some lines are like this only here. It is not in well structured. No, look at here. Is this in structured? No, sir. If you want to arrange this program structured way, so control A, you can select this and control plus KD. Control plus KD, then it will arrange you completely structured order. So it look like good only. Now after this, I'm trying to include these total statements? Srinivas, tell me.
Sir, control KD, na, sir.
Control KD, yes. Control
KD.
plus KD. Oh.
Control plus symbol, sir.
Control KD, that's it. No plus symbol. Plus means just along with control KD, we have to hit this. No plus symbol.
Sir, ఒక కామెంట్ పెట్టి రాయండి సార్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లో వేరియబుల్ డిక్లరేషన్ కాడ
CTRL.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, KD.
KD. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now coming to Mr. Sai Tarun is asking, in Visual Studio is also SQL Server database as available? We can use in page of SQL Server 2019. SQL Server not available. In Visual Studio through, we can able to communicate with SQL Server. How? You can see Server Explorer is there. Here, from here, we can able to establish the connection, like add connection, something. In ADO.NET, we will discuss all these things. Okay, you can give the server name. From here, you can able to establish the connection with what database you want to connect. You can include and connect it. Okay, in Visual Studio, there is no SQL Server. We can connect the SQL Server, and here also we can able to prepare the SQL statements, all those things. Yes, we can do this. So right now there are so many databases I included here. You can expand it here. Suppose this is database DB at 7 p.m. and there are some tables are there. You can expand it. Okay, and if you want to create one table, new table, right click on tables here only in the Server Explorer of Visual Studio, and you can say add new table. Okay, it will populate some script here, and here you have to use it. But actually SQL Server software need to be installed for that. Got my point? Yeah. This is out of the subject. That's what I'm not going to continue this. It look like it is loading like this. So once you load this, here it will ask you to create a table and execute all those things in Visual Studio through also you can do that. Got my point? Okay, this is out of the syllabus. So that's what I'm not going to continue that. Just you're asking the question. That's what I'm showing these options. It's possible, sir. These are all things we will do in ADO.NET case. Means in coming sessions, once I complete Windows Forms lecture, we'll start with ADO.NET, communicating with SQL Server, how to create records, how to delete records, how to update records, all those things we'll discuss in detail. And coming to this point, this code is, I'm just keeping inside the try block because I can say this is risky code. Risky code means there is a chance to get an exception in this code. So that's what I'm keeping this total code into try block only. Let's copy this. And now you can see, okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just copying this. Try block I'm including open bracket, close bracket, place it. And I'm taking catch block, I'm taking catch block, open bracket, close bracket. If anything wrong in the try block, I'm writing in the catch block statement what I'm trying to do. You can see something went wrong. I can say that. If anything wrong, something went wrong. But here I'm including finally block. So finally block including is optional. Then if it is required, you can able to include that. Suppose code is executed, I can say that code is executed. Code is executed. So code is executed. So look at this program. Try block is available, and then catch block is also there, and finally block I included. So first of all, when we start execution, control will jump into inside the try block. If there is no problem at all in these statements, then happily this try block will execute, and except catch block will ignore, finally block will execute. If there is a problem or any exception in this try block, then what will happen? Try block will ignore, catch block will execute, finally block execute. So when catch block will execute, sir, when there is an exception inside the try block, then only catch block will execute. When there is an exception inside the try block, then only catch block will execute. Okay, let's run this. Now you can see enter two numbers, first number and second number. Result is 5. code is executed. Result is 5, where it is there? In which block is there? Try block only there, result is 5. And code is executed where it is there? In finally block is there. So there is no problem in try block. So that's what catch block is ignoring. Got my point? Yes, this is okay. Now next, let me make some problem this try block. Wanted I'm giving some exceptions. So if I give a number first and second number 0, then enter, what happened here? 20 by 0, a number cannot divide with 0. So that's what it is saying. Something went wrong. Code is executed. So which block executed now? Something went wrong where it is there? Inside the catch block. So catch block is executing. Code is executed where it is there? Inside the finally block. So finally block executing. So something went wrong. Code is executed here. So this try block is not executing. Yeah, it is similar to if else only, but not if else. Okay. If else only, but not if else, because it can be handled exceptions. Now coming to this, sir, what type of exception we are unable to show the message? Got my point? Any type of exception. If you entered first number and first number 20 and second number 0, actually we got 0 division exception. But it is saying that something went wrong only. What went wrong, we don't know. But even then, if you entered some characters like input is, so for example, I'm asking numbers, but you are giving characters. Again, it is saying that what? Something went wrong only. But according to exception message, we are not saying, we are not showing proper message, exception message. Are you showing exception relevant messages? No. Only every time we are saying something went wrong, something went wrong. But what went wrong? So this is the problem in this try catch implementation. So in this case, user defined message only I'm saying always. If any exception occurred inside the try block, all the time I'm saying something went wrong, something went wrong. But according to exception, what went wrong, I'm unable to show. If you want to show a proper exception message, okay, so what exception raised and what type of message if you want to show some proper exception message, then we can go for specific except block or specific catch block, specific catch block. Okay, so specific catch block you have to use. What is specific catch block here? There are two types of catch blocks are there, sir. One is generic catch block and next one is specific catch block. So what are the generic catch block is there, generic catch block, and next one is specific catch block is there. Generic catch block and specific catch block. Generic catch block means very simple, a catch block without any exception class. A catch block without any exception class is called generic catch block. But in this program, we have what exception, what catch block? Generic catch block is there. So we don't have any exception class here. So a catch block without any exception class is called generic catch block. Specific catch block means a catch block with exception class. Tell me, Mr. Vidyapati. Hello? Yeah. So a catch block with exception class is called specific catch block. So why I recommend to use specific catch block means if you mention a specific catch block in your program and according to the exception, so it will show a proper exception message to the program so that you can understand what type of exception is raised. But at this moment in this program, we are getting many exceptions, but according to the exceptions, we are not getting any exception message. Every time it is saying me that is something went wrong, something went wrong. But what went wrong actually we don't know. Okay, so either you are raising division by zero exception or you are raising format exception. Like format exception means this is input string was not correct in format. So like this, you can see this is also something went wrong. But my requirement is according to my input types, what type of exception is raised, that exception message I want to show you. to show the message properly, we use which catch block? Specific catch block with exception class. Let's see this. I'm including catch block with exception class. Like what exception class? Divide by zero exception is a class. Ex is a object of this class, and using this object, I'm trying to say message. So ex is my object name, which I mentioned. Message is the property name. Now you can see this ex is compulsory mandatory ex only. No, sir. Anything you can use, but make sure that this class name is a built-in name. This name you can use any name. So ex or message or something like this. So ex dot message I'm printing. So if you use like this specific except block, specific catch block, so you can easily find that which type of exception you are raising in your program. Suppose I'm giving 20 by 0. Now we can see attempted to divide by 0 message is coming. But did I write any this kind of statements in our program? No. But who is written this 0 division divide by 0 exception class return this message, and it will give the object through we are printing this message ex dot message. But I'm saying that this ex name object is name is different. Any name you can take. For example, message msg I'm taking, msg dot message I'm taking. So just I'm saying that this name is any name. And sir, we are handling this at this moment only one exception, that is division by zero exception. But what about other exceptions, format exceptions? So previously, when we enter some characters like this, and we can see we got the exception again, but we have not handled this exception at this moment. Again, abnormal termination is raising. Okay, but you may get doubt. Sir, previous one is better. No, whenever we took normal catch block, that was handled clearly all the exceptions, but all the exceptions we were handled, but it was not show any exception message. But if you want to handle still format exception also, what we can do, we can include one more catch block for format exception class. So let's include one more catch block. So format exception I'm taking here. This time again other exception I'm taking. Format exception is a class, and msg is a object. That object dot message I'm giving. So we are taking format exception clearly. So catch division by zero exception msg, catch format exception msg, console dot write line msg dot message. So now this time how many catch blocks are included? 2 catch blocks are included. So according to your requirement, you can include any number of catch blocks. So now this time, this is the better way to use, because which catch block exception raised, that catch block only will be considered in the execution process. Suppose I'm entering two numbers, 20 by 0, attempted to divide by 0, a message is coming, and next I'm trying to insert some text, like some characters I'm including. Now you can see this time input string was not in a correct format. So that is saying, who is saying this input string was not correct in format? I have included my exception class that is saying exactly input string was not correct in format. Okay, so I have not written in my programming this text anywhere. This is automatically coming by using this exception class. But sir, including instead of this, can't we use super class? Yes. Suppose you can see instead of including multiple catch blocks, we can also use super class. Who is the super class of all exception subclasses? Exception is a super class. Look at here. This is the exception. EXCEPTI1. Exception is a super class. Just I'm taking EX is an object, and this EX dot message. So this is the better option when you don't know what type of exceptions comes from your program. Suppose as a programmer, you have no idea what kind of exceptions there may be chance to raise. So you can use superclass only. This superclass can handle any type of exceptions here. But I'll not recommend this superclass, because the reason is when we use superclass, it has to check internally all the subclass exceptions, and it takes little bit time to check all the subclass exception, which class exception raised. So this is attempted to divide by 0 is coming clearly. And again, format exception, I'm just raising, you can see input is not correct. So this is input is not correct, input is not correct, input string was not in correct format. So we got the exceptions messages clearly. Superclass is handling clearly all the exceptions. If you entered server, your input value is perfect, so then the output will be no issues. So result is 2, code executed like this one. So this is what handling the exception using superclass. But instead of using this superclass, what I recommend, better to use subclass exceptions only. Because when we use subclass exception, directly it will point to the subclass exception only, instead of pointing superclass. Got my point? So when we use subclass exception, directly it will point to subclass exception. If we use superclass, it will check internally this superclass, all subclass exceptions again. And which subclass exception is matched, that exception message will be returned to you. So that is obviously it is little bit time taking process. But this is also recommend like usage of superclass. But only the thing is when we execute the program, or when we don't know what type of exceptions will raise it from the programmer point of view, in that case we can recommend to use superclass exception. Okay, so this is exceptions with predefined exception classes only. But sir, I don't if my exception classes, whatever I use like so far, just little bit exceptions only I use, like zero division error, format exception, but still so many exceptions are there according to type of code which we write in future. So that all exceptions we have to handle in this way only. But just observe here, if existing exception classes do not meet our requirement, for example, if existing exception classes do not meet our requirement, then at that time what we need to do, we need to prepare our own exceptions, that is built-in exception, customized exceptions. So customized exceptions are built-in user-defined exception. So user-defined exception means user has to prepare their own exception classes, and they have to raise into their program. For raising those exceptions, user has to mention the keyword called throw keyword. Generally, built-in exceptions will raise by default, but user-defined exceptions will not raise by default. You have to raise them. That is your responsibility. And superclass or exception class will not take any responsible to raise the exceptions. What exceptions? User-defined exceptions. User-defined exceptions are prepared by the programmer, and programmer only should take responsibility to raise the user-defined exceptions. For that, user has to use throw keyword. So how to prepare our own exception classes and how to raise them into our programming according to requirement, and how to handle those exceptions we will come across in tomorrow session. Okay, yes, so that's all about today. We'll see tomorrow again from continuation. And tomorrow Friday, obviously we'll go for SQL, and next whenever we meet C#, that's from here onwards I'll continue that.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yeah, tell me, Srinivas.
అది మనము ఇక్కడ మెసేజ్ అంటున్నాం కదా సార్, అంటే అక్కడ లోపల క్లాస్ లోపల ఏమి అంటే ఈ ఎక్సెప్షన్ క్లాస్ లోపల ఉన్న మెసేజ్ మనకు వస్తూ ఉంటుంది సార్ జనరల్ గా.
Exactly. Predefined exception. This class, what message will return default, that message I'm storing into this object through this message I'm printing to the output window.
సరే, ఈ ఎక్సెప్షన్ క్లాస్ లోపల ఏ మెసేజ్ ఉందనేది మనకు కనుక్కోవచ్చా సార్?
ఏ మెసేజ్, ఇదే మెసేజ్ ఇలానే కనుక్కోవాలి. యూ కెన్ యూస్ నౌ, యూ కెన్ సీ ఐఎమ్ యూజింగ్ దిస్ ఎర్రర్ అని చెప్తున్నాను. దిస్ ఈస్ వాట్ యాక్చువల్లీ యూజర్ డిఫైన్. ఇది ప్లస్ ప్రీ డిఫైన్డ్ మెసేజ్.
అవును సార్. లోపల మనం ఎక్సెప్షన్ క్లాస్ లోపల ఎక్కడైనా చూసేదానికి స్కోప్ ఉంటుందని మామూలుగా
చూడండి. అర్థమైంది. ఇక్కడ ఎర్రర్ అనేది ఇది మీ మెసేజ్, ఇది అటెంప్టెడ్ టు డివైడ్ బై 0 అనేది అది యూజర్ డిఫైన్ మెసేజ్.
అవును సార్. ఇది లోపల ఎక్కడ ఉన్నది అనేది మనం ఏదైనా అంటే చూడొచ్చా? ఎక్కడ లోపల లైబ్రరీస్ లో కానీ ఎక్కడైనా నేమ్ స్పేస్లలో కానీ?
లేదు, దట్ ఈస్ బిల్ట్ ఇన్ క్లాసెస్ కదా. క్లాస్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ బై డిఫాల్ట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ రేజింగ్. ఇప్పుడు చూడండి, మీరు ఇది రేజ్ అయిన వెంటనే మీకు ఆటోమేటిక్ గా ఒక బాక్స్ లో వస్తుంది టోటల్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. ఇక్కడ వెన్ వి కీప్ ద మెసేజ్ సిస్టమ్ డాట్ ఎక్సెప్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఈ ఎక్సెప్షన్ క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఈ క్లాస్ ని, జస్ట్ వెయిట్, నావిగేటింగ్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్, నా ఇది ప్రీడిఫైన్డ్ గా వాళ్ళు రాసింది ఈ కోడ్ మొత్తం. ఇది సిస్టమ్ ఎక్సెప్షన్స్. This total code inbuilt, we cannot understand this code. Actually, so many methods are involved in, but actually these are all exception messages they have predefined. ఇలా చూడొచ్చు. Lot of things are there here, but here also there is no type of messages, but what it will return, it will say that. You can see there are so many static resources are there. Get message from native resources, get message from native resources, like this. All built-in stuff which is already implemented. So because of this implementation only, that exception class is going to work.
Yeah, fine, sir. నేను అడిగింది ఇదే సార్.
Just you have to click over there, that automatically will return.
ఇచ్చేస్తాను సార్, చూస్తాను సార్. ఇది క్లాసే కదా సార్, ఎక్సెప్షన్ అనేది ఇంటర్ఫేస్ సార్?
క్లాస్, undoubtedly class. Exception చూడండి ఇక్కడ, పబ్లిక్ క్లాస్ ఎక్సెప్షన్.
ఫైన్ సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.